Happy Veterans Day! It is a great day to be a veteran, and I thank you all for joining me as we celebrate the incredible people who raised their right hands and took an oath to defend the United States of America and our way of life. I'd like to recognize our elected officials and honorable guests, Senator Paul Feeney, Representative Jay Barrows, the Board of Selectmen, Chair Mark Elfman, Chris Mitchell, David Feldman, Ms. Leah Gibson, and Chief O'Leary, Town Manager Bill Keegan, Assistant Town Manager Mike Johns, and Superintendent of Schools Ms. Amy Burdos. I'd like to start the ceremony by inviting Father Ed Cardoza from St. Mark's Episcopal Church for the invocation. Would you please stand?
Let us pray. You who are our creator and sustainer, you who are our light and our peace, you who are our wisdom and our courage, be here with us. You have inspired many of our best and brightest to proudly stand and defend our beloved country. You have granted us brave and loyal women and men who have steadfastly served in their chosen branch of our military. We gather here to remember them today, our beloved veterans. We acknowledge that their service enables us to walk with freedom in this great land. Today, we seek to honor your sons and daughters who have served or who are serving our country. We are reminded that because of their service, we can live in safety with dignity. We ask that you abundantly bless those who have previously served. May their service time be rewarded in every way and in every day. We stop now and remember those who are currently serving. We ask that you provide them with your protection, your strength, and your peace. We ask that you would abundantly provide for all their needs. We ask that you would enable them to overcome every personal and professional obstacle. We ask that you would protect their families from hurt and from harm. May each of our veterans feel honored, not just today, but every day. We also give special recognition to our wounded warriors, to those who are homeless, to those who struggle with addiction and depression. We realize that so many of our heroes are dealing with physical and emotional wounds that occurred as a result of their time and service to our country. Be with them. Be with their service dogs and animals that care for them, with their caregivers. Give them the care and accompaniment that they deserve as they seek to gain health, stability, and wholeness, for that is what they deserve. We pray for all of these things, for those wishes and prayers in our own hearts. Amen.
The Boy Scouts will now lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Boy Scouts? Sorry, remain standing. Please remain standing. Specialist Blair Levitt from the 215th Army Band will sing our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you. Now you may be seated. A few weeks ago, a widow came into my office to drop off some cookies. Cookies are always appreciated in the Veteran Services Department, okay? Future reference. Along with the cookies came a poem. I have asked her to read it, but she declined, instead suggesting someone else read it. So please welcome Veteran Services Department Administrative Assistant, Lisa Plant.
Thank you, U.S. Military, by Mrs. Harriet Rounds. They stand so straight and tall. These men and women give their all. I am so proud to shake their hands, to thank them for protecting our land. Although I am sorry they have to carry a gun, I am so proud of each and every one. The Army, the Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force, and Marines are the most dedicated people I have ever seen. To be able to thank our country's treasure truly gives me great pleasure. Because of you, our country is alive. Without you, America would not survive. So I want to thank each and every one of you for your sacrifices and all that you do. Because we all know it is true. Without you, there would be no red, white, and blue. Thank you, and God bless you.
A few years ago, when I moved back to Massachusetts, I enrolled my kids in a self-defense course. There was another mom there, and she was friendly enough, and we began chatting. And we quickly realized that we had a ton in common. Our children were the same ages, we liked the same television shows, we frequented the same restaurants, and then I learned that she was also an Army wife to a wounded warrior. She asked if I knew her husband, Kevin, and I did not. Coincidentally, I did meet her husband 2 days later, and then seemed to run into him at every single veterans event thereafter. And so, naturally, we became friends. And now, several years down the line, he has been voluntold to be our guest speaker. Master Sergeant Kevin Burrell is currently assigned as the Veteran Outreach Program Specialist for the Brockton Vet Center. Kevin served as an 11 Charlie Mortabin and 11 Zulu Senior Infantry Sergeant in the U.S. Army from 1993 until being medically retired as a Master Sergeant in 2009 after being wounded in Afghanistan in 2007. He served in Headquarters and Headquarters Company and Delta Company 3-5 Cav in Germany for 3 years, where he deployed to the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia and Operation Joint Endeavor Bosnia. He spent 3 years in Headquarters and Headquarters Company 520th Infantry, Fort Lewis, Washington, with a deployment to Thailand for Operation Cobra Gold. Then 3 years as a recruiter in the Des Moines Recruiting Battalion with duty in Dubuque, Iowa, as an on-production recruiter. His last 7 years were with Bravo Company and Headquarters Company 3, 325 Airborne Infantry Regiment, and Headquarters Company 2, 508 Parachute Infantry Regiment, with deployments to Iraq in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 1 and 2, Operation Iraqi Freedom 2 and 3, and deployments to Afghanistan for Operation Enduring Freedom 7. His awards include the Purple Heart, Bronze Star, Iraqi Service Medal, Afghanistan Service Medal, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Meritorious Service Medal, Airborne Badge, Ranger Tab, Jump Master, Expert Infantryman's Badge, Combat Infantryman's Badge, Gold Recruiter Badge with 3 Sapphire Stars, and is a Sergeant Audie Murphy Club inductee. He currently resides in Middleborough, where he coaches youth football, basketball, and baseball. Kevin is also pursuing a degree in social work at Bridgewater State University. Did I miss anything, brother? Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a proper Foxborough welcome to Master Sergeant Kevin Burrell.
So I think she pretty much just said everything, so speech complete. So I do have something to say here, but I was reading something before I came here, and it kind of struck a chord with me. It wasn't even going to be part of this, but I think I'm just going to add it in. And it was talking about thank you for your service. It was written by a veteran, and it said thank you for your service. And I've never been comfortable with that. Somebody coming up to me, whether it's another veteran or a civilian or whoever it is, saying, thank you for your service. I was just never comfortable with it. A lot of veterans will tell you the same thing. They're not comfortable with it. And I didn't know really why. And when I read this, it kind of struck a chord with me. I didn't join the Army for, all these amazing things you see to defend the country, to whatever, all these higher things. I didn't join the Army that. I joined the Army out of selfish reasons. I wanted to shoot cool machine guns. I wanted to jump out of airplanes. I wanted to travel around the world, and I got to do all that. So, I joined during the Cold War. Bill Clinton was president. They were drawing down. So it wasn't a lot going on until we went to Bosnia, but that's different. So, we got to do a lot of cool stuff, and it was great. I got paid well. I enjoyed it. So it was 100% selfish. So when people say thank you for your service, I'm like, I had a lot of fun. I don't know, whatever. So I just thought I had that. I never really understood why until I read that this morning. Right before I came here, I read that. So it was pretty cool. So anyways, Allie told you quite a bit about me. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself and my story and some of the stuff that happened. I said my name's Kevin. I'm the Veterans Outreach Specialist for the Brockton Vets Center, and I spent almost 17 years in the Army, a lot of it which was with the 82nd Airborne Division, and I was medically retired as a Master Sergeant in 2009. I like to tell my story to people to kind of give a first-person understanding of how the Vet Center works and how it's able to help our nation's war fighters, how it helped me, and how we are a little bit different from the Department of Veterans Affairs, even though we're part of the Department of Veterans Affairs. If we have any Vietnam veterans in the house, that's who started our organization. And I say thank you to those guys every day and welcome home to those guys because they started our organization. I'm forever grateful to those guys. So I'm all sure we've heard the usual adages about we have to help the veterans. I hear that a lot. Hey, we got to help the veterans. Well, not all of them need help. A lot of them are good. Veterans must be messed up because of war. Not all of them are, We're all broken or we have to be given everything for free. That's not true either. Nothing is further from the truth, actually. So to paraphrase Sebastian Junger, if anybody's ever heard, if you haven't heard of Sebastian Junger, he does TED Talks. He is he was embedded with the 173rd Airborne in the Korengal, Afghanistan in 2007. And he was there. These guys These guys in 2007 saw 60% of all the firefights in Afghanistan, that one company up on a little hill in the Cornwall Valley. But to paraphrase him, he said, believe it or not, most veterans miss war. I know that sounds silly, and you may have a hard time understanding it, but it's true. I miss war, I miss my unit, I miss my paratroopers, I miss my peers that I served with. Fewer than 1% of all Americans see a war, but according to the IAVA, the Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America, that 1% equates to 2.5 million people. And over 37,000 of those 2.5 million have done more than 5 deployments overseas. So explaining why people miss war is probably one of the hardest things to explain to people that have never experienced it. I still remember, can almost feel the adrenaline rush and surge that you feel when you initiate contact with the enemy. I was a jump master in the 82nd Airborne. I've jumped from every single aircraft that we can jump from, and it pales in comparison to that adrenaline rush that you feel when that happens, when you initiate combat. As Ali said, I did 5 tours overseas. 2 were in the Balkans before 9/11, Macedonia, and 1 to Bosnia. Then those Iraq tours that she talked about in Afghanistan. By the time I was in Afghanistan, I felt like Sam Elliott in We Were Soldiers Once and Young. If you haven't seen that movie, it's a great movie. I felt like I was invincible. That's that one scene where everybody's down and everybody's taking cover and Sam Elliott's standing up and just returning fire, you know, and just being an all-around badass. And that's kind of what I felt like by the time I got to Afghanistan. I felt invincible. You know, I didn't feel like I needed to get down because I always said the safest place to be when an Iraqi was shooting at you was right in front of them because they couldn't hit anything. I felt invincible, that is, until I was in a pretty severe IED blast. So that pretty much changed everything. The blast wounded me, wounded my driver and my gunner, and killed one of my line company mortar section leaders who also happened to be one of my best friends. That April day in 2007 changed a lot of things for me. I lost a comrade and a friend. The world lost a great man and a husband and a father. I was a platoon sergeant of a mortar platoon who was responsible for the quick reaction force for our entire sector in Afghanistan. It was about 600 square miles that we were responsible for. It was just overwhelming. Besides my platoon of 30 paratroopers, I also had 100 Afghan police and Afghan army that I was responsible for that were a part of my quick reaction force. We were responsible for responding to any type of incident in our sector that covered hundreds of square miles. Those incidents could range from an IED blast, enemy contact, attacks on Afghan district centers, VIP visits, anything. If anybody remembers from 2007, there was a bunch of Koreans that were on a mission over there. They all got kidnapped. We were the ones responsible for trying to find them, and at the very last minute, they pulled us back when we did find them because the Korean government wanted to have a peaceful resolve to it, and they ended up killing a bunch of the Koreans before the Rangers went in and took them out. The day we were hit was actually, we were not on a QRF mission. Actually, we were doing a movement to contact mission in conjunction with our scout platoon and a platoon of Afghan army soldiers. We were redirected to a small village where there was a meeting of high-level Taliban leaders happening. The Taliban set IEDs all along multiple routes into the village, and my vehicle struck the first one on the way into the village. Although I was wounded with injuries to my arm, back, neck, face, and head, I refused to be medevac because, number one, I was angry that we were hit, and number two, I was the platoon sergeant, felt responsibility for my men that were still on the ground. Still on the ground, anyways. I stayed in the fight in Afghanistan for another 7 months when finally my injuries became too much and I was sent to a hospital in Germany for evaluation, and then to Walter Reed Medical Center, and eventually back to Fort Bragg, where I was assigned to a WTU, or as a Warrior Transition Unit, where my entire job there was to heal. I was motivated to get better and get back to my guys in Afghanistan. By then I had been promoted to Master Sergeant, or E8, and I was offered the job as a First Sergeant in the very same company that I started my career with in the 82nd, so I was obviously, excited to get back there. Coincidentally, the man that was the current First Sergeant in that company, who made Sergeant Major, or E9 at the same time I made Master Sergeant, was wounded the very same day, coming into the same village from a different avenue of approach. So there was a lot of parallels. I ended up spending 2 years in that WTU, had a couple of surgeries. I ended up being diagnosed with a traumatic brain injury, which I didn't even know what that was back then. and PTSD. I was offered jobs to stay in the Army, but ultimately I was not able to deploy anymore. So I decided to accept the medical retirement. My viewpoint was if I couldn't go back overseas and re-engage with the enemy, I wasn't staying in the Army, and it wasn't worth staying into me, doing anything else. Retirement, so I retired, I moved back to Massachusetts, and civilian life was not what I expected. I'd been in the Army 17 years, and I didn't know how to be a civilian. I was lucky, though. I was a partner in a family business. I had a job that paid very well. And unfortunately, though, my father, who ran that business, passed away 6 months after I retired. So I lost my place. He passed away 6 months after I retired. I continued to run the business, but I always felt something was missing. I missed the Army. I missed my paratroopers. And like I said, above as crazy as it sounds, I missed war. What I didn't know, though, was although I had a PTSD diagnosis, I wasn't doing anything to help it. I was actually doing many things to make it worse. Working too much, drinking in excess, taking a lot of unnecessary risks, the same stuff we all did in the Army. I finally came to the realization, mostly by my wife, that Ellie mentioned, that I and we needed more help than I could do on my own. I ended up being referred to a Veterans Affairs Vet Center, where I work now, by my mental health doctor I was seeing at the VA. That one referral actually changed my life. It probably saved my life, and it definitely saved my marriage. Thankfully, I was never suicidal, but like I said before, I was not in a great place, and I was not making great choices. So one story I tell, I actually rode my motorcycle into the woods at about 40 miles an hour after drinking too much, and I don't know who was looking out for me, but it was all trees, and I missed every single tree. I hit a trellis in somebody's yard, and I was able to drive away. But that was a big, awakening. I should have, been in trouble with the police. There was all kinds of stuff I should have happened, but that didn't. So I blew it off, like I said, like it was no big deal at the time, but that was the wake-up call and probably the final straw for my wife. After I was helped, I decided that my business was not fulfilling my need to be around my fellow veterans. So in 2013, I sold my business and went to work for the Coast Guard as a civilian, which is a huge difference from going from the Army to the Coast Guard. But I was a civilian, with the ultimate goal of getting into the VA to help my fellow veterans the way I was helped. So in 2016, I finally accomplished that goal and was hired as a Veterans Outreach Specialist, working first at the New Bedford Vet Center, and now I'm up at the Brockton Vet Center, which is the very vet center that turned my life around. And sadly to say, the woman that worked there that was my counselor, she was also an Air Force veteran of Iraq, and she passed away shortly after that from a virus that she had caught while she was overseas that didn't know it was dormant. She went home on a Friday and passed away on a Sunday. She was like 27 years old. So it was, and her, every day I go into work and I see her, they have her memorial up on the wall, so I see her every day and say hi to her every day. So with the change of career and more time, I'm now able to live the life that I want to live. Like Allie said, I'm in school at Bridgewater State pursuing a degree as a social worker, and most importantly, I have a lot more time to dedicate to my family. I am the head coach of my son's football team and also assistant coach to his basketball and baseball teams. Having the ability to spend more time with my family, coaching my son, going to school, working with and helping my fellow veterans are all the things that help me live the best life I can and feel like I'm contributing back to the community that helped me and I care so much about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you for sharing your story, and I'm proud to call you and Lauren my friends. And now, ladies and gentlemen, the real reason you're all probably here, it is my absolute pleasure to introduce to you the 215th Army Band, led by Chief Warrant Officer 3, Stephen Martins.
The 215th Army Band of the Massachusetts National Guard is the second oldest band in the United States Army and has been an international music ambassador for the Commonwealth on numerous occasions. In 1986, the band performed for President Reagan during the presidential summit with the Soviet Union in Iceland. In 1995, the band traveled to the Netherlands to help commemorate the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II. The band has also completed successful goodwill tours of the countries of Greece and Jamaica. The band has also performed successful active duty backfill missions in Heidelberg, Germany, Aberdeen Proving Ground, Maryland, Fairbanks, Alaska, Fort Gordon, Georgia, and on 3 separate occasions at Fort Monroe, Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the 215th Army Band? Well, our first group is the Minuteman Brass Band under the direction of Sergeants First Class Brian Kinane and Michael Kokoska, and it was brought to life after the devastation caused by Hurricane Katrina. Some of the citizens of New Orleans were relocated to Massachusetts, and in an effort to make them feel at home, we put together a little New Orleans brass band. It's been the most sought-out musical team in our inventory, and we hope you enjoy these sounds of Bourbon Street.
I went down to St. James Infirmary. I saw my baby there. She was stretched out on a long white table. So cool, so sweet, so fair.
A lot of veterans out there today? Yeah. Let's see those hands. You guys ready for a great show? Yeah. All right, here we go. You guys ready? Yes, sir. All right. me. Look at me, right? I'm the stylish. No, I'm not really the stylish. Let's hear it up for Mrs. Mitchell. All right, we're gonna tune it up. Give me a little something. Sing. Neither did we. All right, we have one more for you. It's a classic. This time, you're going to sing with us. You guys ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Chief Warrant Officer 3, Stephen Martins, began his career in 1987 with the 215th Army Band. In 1990, he transferred to the United States Navy, in which he served for 9 years on active duty. During his naval career, he was stationed at Navy Band San Diego, the Atlantic Fleet Band in Norfolk, Virginia, and Navy Band in New Orleans. Chief Martins returned to Massachusetts and served 8 years on active duty in support of recruiting and operations before returning to the 215th Army Band. Please welcome from Somerset, Massachusetts, the commander of the 215th Army Band, Chief Warrant Officer 3, Stephen Martins.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Is this what you were picturing when you came out to hear the Army Band today? No? A couple of marches, maybe we'd march around up here and stuff. No, we're not doing that. We are going to get a little louder, though, I can guarantee that in a second. I know that there's a lot of things going on today, a lot of different events out in different towns, and for you to come and spend a couple of hours with us here in Foxborough, we're honored to be here. We're excited to be here. We appreciate the efforts of our VSO here and our great female veterans that you have. This year we're celebrating female veterans, and if you know anything about these two, you know that not every GI is a Joe, right? So when we were asked to we go through all of our different lists and things, the requests that we get for Veterans Day, we only have 40 soldiers. You're seeing about 15 here today. We have some over at the March in a Parade with our Fife and Drum group. We have another organization that's playing for the governor right now. And the first sergeant and I decided to come here because it looked like it was going to be a little bit more fun. So hope you don't mind. We decided to come here and share the day with you. So we're ready if we turn it up a little bit. Is that going to be okay? Yeah. All right, we're going to swing it on out. Hope you like it.
I just found out about love and I like it. I like it. I like what love has been doing me. I hold you close in my arms and I like it. Yes, I like it. Oh, what a wonderful future I see. It's a one time only. It's a lifetime deal. Somehow I know that it's real. I can tell by the way that I feel. Well, right now I'm living it up and I like it. Yes, I like it. I said, hey, you, give me a clue. What's enough for you? Well, it looks like you could be liking it too. Come on. It's a lifetime deal. Somehow I know that it's real. I can tell by the way that I feel. Well, right now I'm living it up and I like it. Yes, I like it. Oh, I said, hey, you, give me a clue. What's wrong with you? Well, it looks like you could be liking it too. Yes, it looks like you could be.
Specialist 11, ladies and gentlemen. You're hearing from the Brigade Big Band. And from the mid-1930s, the big bands were extraordinarily popular on recordings, radio, in the fashionable hotels, the great ballrooms, the big theaters, the posh nighteries, and in the movies. Our Brigade Big Band would like to continue playing some of that style for you right now.
Hi. How's it going? I would like to tell you a story about my good friend Harry Connick Jr. Maybe you've heard of him before. Still owes me $5 though, so don't give him too much credit. That was a joke. We're gonna do a song by Harry Connick Jr. I'm pretty sure he wrote this about me. Probably not, but he probably did. And it goes a little something like this. There's a few things I haven't told you before you hear them from someone else. To clear up misconceptions, I'd rather tell you myself. There was a time I rode a roller coaster from Coney Island to Key West. I held on with one finger so the other 10 could rest. Maybe hard to believe, hard to comprehend, but baby, you didn't know me when I played third chair trombone in an out-of-work polka band. We looked for gigs on ships in countries that had no land. Maybe hard to believe we hit the top 10, but baby, you didn't know me when. If you want a resume, I'll put it in writing. It's only good for one day, and the contents are frightening. I wrote long-winded speeches, I was ahead of state. I wrote an endless novel called CJ Love and Hate. Baby, hard to believe I'm reticent. Baby, you didn't know me when. Let's go! If you want a resume, I'll put it in writing. It's only good for one day, and the contents are frightening. I wrote long-winded speeches, I was ahead of state. I wrote an endless novel called CJ Love and Hate. Maybe hard to believe that I'm reticent, but baby, 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 you didn't know me when. Thank you. And now, I'd like to do a little number for you. Maybe you've heard this one before. Feel free to sing along if you know the words, it'll help me remember them. If tomorrow all the things were gone, I worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died who gave that right to me. And I'll proudly stand up next to you and defend us till the day. But there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston, from New York to LA. There's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, but at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died who gave that right to me. And I'll proudly stand up next to you and defend us till the day. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died who gave that right to me. And I'll proudly stand up next to you, defend us till today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA.
First of all, Adam, go. Something else, huh? I want to take a second. There are a few people that we can't do as an organization up here what we do. We have 40 musicians in the 215th Army Band. We cover the entire Commonwealth. This past year, we did approximately 80 missions throughout the course of the year. That's a lot for a National Guard organization. We have 2 full-timers that work on our behalf every day. We're part-timers ourselves, but we have 2 active duty folks that just take a barrage of phone calls, mainly from the first sergeant, but I call them once in a while too, to take care of the logistics of everything and all the transportation and the food and all of that stuff. So that's this gentleman right here, Staff Sergeant Nelson Cabral. And in the back, Sergeant First Class Mike Kokoska. We saw him before. I have the pleasure on a daily basis, during the week I work for the Department of Veteran Affairs. And I have the opportunity to see veterans of all ages, genders, every background you can imagine. I have an opportunity to see their backgrounds and what they've done and the awards and all of the amazing things that our veterans have done and do every day. And for me, Veterans Day isn't one day. It's every day. And for those of us that work in the business every day supporting veterans, it's every day. It's not just one day. But today is the day that we put aside for you and for all the people that aren't quite as fortunate to work on your behalf every single day. So that's why we've turned this into a little bit of a party. Is that okay? That's all right? We're going to do a couple more for you and then play some service songs and get back to this being a ceremony, and the party will be over at that point. But I'd like to bring back to the stage, you've heard her a few times today. I can't say enough about what this young woman does for us in the 215th Army Band and the Massachusetts National Guard. If you're at the Bruins game tomorrow night, you'll see her out there singing the national anthem. Hopefully they throw out a nice rug because I don't want any issues or casualties on the way out there. But that's Specialist Blair Levitt. We're going to bring her back up here.
Say it's only a paper moon sailing over a cardboard sea, but it wouldn't be make-believe if you believed in me. Yes, it's only a canvas sky hanging over a muslin tree, but it wouldn't be make-believe if you believed in me. Without your love, it's a honky-tonk parade. Without your love, it's a melody played in a pagan. It's a Barnum and Bailey world, just as phony as it can be. But it wouldn't be make-believe if you believed in me. Without your love, it's a honky-tonk parade. Without your love, I played in a very well, just as phony as it can be. Wanna be make-believe with you believed in me. How you guys doing tonight? All right. Today, actually. What time is it? We're gonna do one more for you. What a day it has been, what a rare mood I'm in. Why, it's almost like being in love. There's a smile on my face for the whole human race. Why, it's almost like being in love. How the beauty of life seems to be, or like a bell that is ringing for me. From the way that I feel when our bell starts to peal, when I could swear I was falling, yes I could swear I was falling, oh I could swear I was falling in love. Come on. Ladies and gentlemen, all the music a bell that is ringing for me. And from the way that I feel when that bell starts to peal, well, I could swear I was falling. Yes, I could swear I was falling. I could swear I was falling.
Great job, Blair. Awesome. We'd like to take a minute, and I know that you were expecting marches, and I'm sorry if you were. We just decided to groove it out instead. In Seekonk, though, I hear there's a good parade, right, today in Fall River. But anyway, we are going to take a minute to honor all of you in the service in which you served in. We say actually at funerals, we say some precious words to folks and their families, but you really have to hear that truly on behalf of the president that you served under and everyone right up until today and the military service that you served, your service is appreciated. It is certainly appreciated across the board equally. It doesn't matter what service. So thank you very, very much. So we're going to go through the Armed Forces songs, and if you recognize, and First Sergeant's going to come out and remind you in case it's been a little while. We're going to play the service songs for you. We'd love for you to stand up when you hear yours. It's just a great opportunity for all of us to say thank you. So it's the Armed Forces on Parade.
The senior branch of our armed forces is the United States Army, which was born in the fires of the Revolution and established on June 14, 1775 as the Continental Army. The Army fought first for our independence, and Army soldiers have fought to protect it ever since. Our United States Marine Corps was created in 1775 by the Continental Congress. America's soldiers of the sea have been serving with distinction for over 243 years, and the Marine Corps Reserve since it was founded in 1943. From the halls of Montezuma to the sands of the Persian Gulf, Marines have fought to protect America's interests. The Marine Corps motto, Semper Fidelis, means always faithful, and Marines have served America faithfully for more than 2 centuries. The United States Navy is the branch of our armed forces that preserves and protects our national interests at sea. United States naval forces operate around the world, sailing on every ocean, patrolling the skies above and the depths below. Since its creation in 1794, the Navy has forged a legacy of service to the nation, both in peacetime and in war. The United States Air Force is the youngest of our armed forces and traces its roots to 1907, when the Army Signal Corps established an aeronautical division. The National Security Act of 1947 formally established an Air Force as a separate branch of the armed forces. From biplanes to sophisticated aircraft, the United States Air Force Reserve, and Air National Guard are critical elements in defense of our nation. United States Coast Guard was founded in 1790 and is our oldest continuous seagoing force. In peacetime, the Coast Guard is part of the branch of the Department of Homeland Security and is responsible for protecting life and property at sea and for enforcing maritime laws. In time of war, the Coast Guard becomes part of the Navy and joins the other branches as the members of the United States Armed Forces.
Throughout the course of this year, we have been playing on our tour this summer, and over our last our last concert for the year coming up next month, we've been taking a minute to just recognize one of our soldiers that is retiring this year. He has spent 40 years, 40. I can barely get to 20. He did 40 years of military service, and I'd like to just recognize him. He's a former Marine Corps, where he got his beginning years, and then he came over to us, and Sergeant First Class Robert Bean in the back there. That is awesome. He hates recognition. That is great. I want to just do that again. So there's a guy, he's about to retire. And the backbone of the Army is certainly the NCO Corps. We wouldn't be able to do what we do without our first sergeant, our highest enlisted that we have in our organization. He's been your MC today, and that's First Sergeant Jeffrey Hyde. Thank you for everything you do, Top. I'm actually just burning time a little bit because this last song is really, really fast and I needed a quick break. So that's really all I'm doing. Does anybody have any jokes? Our last song, Every Little Beat. I'd like to just quickly say I've been doing this last selection I did years ago back when I was with the Navy. And when I think of the song and I think about every little beat, it's kind of like this thing every day. And you're going to hear in a second, it's a pretty fast song. And that's the way life comes at us every day. It just comes at us fast and furious. And sometimes the coffee is working in the morning and we're ready for it. And sometimes it takes until about 11:30. And sometimes, well, we'll just catch up with last week at some point next week, right? And I always think of that when we play this song. But what I'll say to you veterans is, as we go every day and every little day and every day, and there's a lot of resources out there for you, but don't let the everyday grind get you in a bad place. We have a lot of resources. We have amazing people here in Foxboro that are coming together to make sure that you have the support that you need. You can call myself. You can call the First Sergeant, Military One Source, the VA. Just pick up the phone if you ever need anything, okay? And we'll be right there for you. You got a great organization here leading the way for you. So happy Veterans Day. This is our last song. Thank you very much.
guys. I think they like you. What do you think? Father Cardoza, would you give the benediction, please? Would you remain standing?
How does one give a benediction after that? You were our benediction, as was Kevin. So we give thanks, and I put away my solemnity to offer what a benediction should be. A time of giving thanks, a time of taking a word or a phrase that you heard spoken here today, perhaps from our keynote, perhaps from one of our songs, holding it in your heart and going forth from this place. May we be blessed with eyesight that allows us to see the health and the wellness of our vets. May we be blessed with discerning ears in those situations where a vet may not be doing so well, that we might reach out, that they may not be alone, because as we look around this room, we know they are not alone. May every day be a day for celebration of service. And may we take of the groove of this day, the partying of this day, and bring it out into a world of disconnection, knowing that freedom and peace are ours, and they are a healing balm for our community and our world. Amen.
You may be seated. And now my thank yous. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart for coming out and celebrating my first Veterans Day as director. I think I did okay. I am still so humbled and impressed by the patriotism of this town, and you guys make my job so easy, so thank you. And thank you to our elected officials and the administration team. Thank you to the school department for helping to distribute the flyers and opening up the school, and special thanks to the custodians. I'd like to thank Chief Martins and the entire 215 Army Band for a spectacular show. And thanks also, Chief, for your friendship. I'd like to thank Master Sergeant Kevin Burrell, who, by the way, when asked if he would be my guest speaker, responded with, "Do I have a choice?" No, Kevin, you don't. I'd like to thank Foxborough Cable Access and Mike Weber, the Veteran Services Advisory Committee, and thank you to my own family, especially my husband, Sergeant First Class Gus Rodriguez, who gets woken up at 3 a.m. because I have a bright idea I want to run by him, and who holds down the household while I'm running around attending events and functions and week-long conferences. And he does such a great job raising my children, and I would be remiss if I didn't mention you. Thank you. Lastly, thank you to my assistant, Lisa Plant. And with all that said, if you are a veteran or a widow of a veteran and you would like a turkey this year for Thanksgiving, there are sign-up sheets in the cafeteria where there's also lots of food. So please join me after this and go eat your fill. And lastly, God bless all of you. God bless Foxborough, and God bless America. Thank you.